this? Does this work okay? Okay, all right. Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to be here. When I told my friends I was coming to speak here, they were like, wow, like, that's impressive. So it just feels good. So I have to say, I just feel all morning like I'm with my people, which is a really wonderful, really wonderful place to be. Excuse me. Okay, so how many of you are familiar with heart math? Anybody here? Some heart math? Heart math? Yeah. So I was going to, you have a meditation process that you bring everybody together. Coherence is the term that they use. And so I don't have to do that. So that's great. So when my husband and I first decided that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together, our commitment was to grow older together. And it wasn't to grow old, it was to grow older together. And energetically, we've always felt that that has a very different energy than growing old, because we're all going to grow older. That's just how it is. And there's a statistic that says only 7% of couples reach their 50th anniversary, but those who do report that that is the highest point of their relationship, is that 50 years and that time that they've grown older together. So I was raised on an organic cow farm in the mountains of Oregon. And my dad was a family doc. He's 18 years older than I am, so we were all kind of growing up together. And we went to see hundreds of house calls because the kids would have to get dragged around with Dad. And we got to watch how people cared for themselves at all kind of stages of their lives, which I didn't realize was an influence, but you know, the experiences that we have when we're younger, we build on as we grow older. And I was in the corporate world for a couple of decades and then had the opportunity to go out on my own and be a business consultant. To make a very long story short, one of my projects was to start a company called Good Fat Company, and we made good fat bars. And I was at a conference because people don't eat enough good fat. Good fat got a bad rap, right? But one of my colleagues, who was my partner, he was seeing 500 patients a week in his clinic, and he said one of the biggest challenges he saw that people had was they weren't eating enough good fat. Well, good fat is hard to carry around as a snack. You know, to carry an avocado is not that easy of a thing to do. So we made a snack bar. And I was in California at a conference. We were providing the snack food for a gathering of hundreds of chiropractors and nutritionists. And while I was sitting there listening to their wisdom, I heard my grandfather, change the slide, please. This very, he's in the middle, Grandpa Henry. He was a very, very wise guy, and in 1946 he graduated from chiropractor school, which was essentially when people were considered quacks. But that was Grandpa. So anyways, I heard him in my head say, start a magazine. And I'm like, Grandpa, I don't know anything about a magazine, but I did know that I loved educating people, or I loved educating myself. And with the good fat snack, we found that people who cared about the good fat that they ate also cared about the thoughts they thought, or the people they surrounded themselves with. And I wanted to pursue the education piece, but I didn't know how. And so here's Grandpa saying to me, start a magazine. And I'm like, and the message was, don't worry about, what you need to know will always show up for you. And so, you know, it's been as I've gotten older, I've understood more that when we can step courageously into growth, the people and resources that we need have a way of appearing. And you can use whatever language they have, you know, synchronicity, conversations, whatever, they just do. When I heard being open, when we're open and we can be curious, those things show up. So what started as an idea with Good Fat Life 7 years ago has grown into a full media platform. So we've got our magazine. So we do quarterly issues, and for every issue, what started, like I said, with an idea, there's now 60 people working to curate each issue. It takes a village, and it's been a wonderful thing. It's like we teach what we need to know. So every person that has come into the magazine or has been part of the journey has elevated certainly my life, and I'd like to thank the people that we get to share. So we have a weekly podcast. We're celebrating our 230th episode this next week, and we have workshops, website, social media, and but we like to say that you think of, in the world today, there's so much noise and there's so much, I'll say, fake information. So we really spend our energy around just assembling evidence-based information so that in a way that simple ways so that you can make your own decisions. This isn't about me telling anybody what to do. It's just about presenting. We like to say your trusted best friend. So we present it and then you get to choose. So one of the things that happened along the way is I wanted to find, growth. So when we grow older, one of the ways to keep our minds healthy is to push ourselves. Whether it's language, whether it's gardening, whether it's whatever that makes us speaking, being in front of people, anything that makes us step out of our comfort zone helps us to keep our minds young. And so one of the things that came to me, it just showed up, was Gateway University. And I had always wanted, my family's all doctors, and I didn't want to go to the medical route, and I always thought I would become a PhD, a doctor of business. But it just never presented until about 3 years ago, and Gateway University came, and they're all around conscious living, conscious leadership, conscious business, conscious, I don't know, I'm going blank here. But it was like, the point was I could delve into a deeply intense research initiative that would support Good Fat Life and help me age with grace. And what I discovered is that the science, I was going to do my dissertation on how eating good fat helped us age well. But what I discovered that it's so much more, it's so much bigger. And that the myth, we kind of get this myth that as we grow older, that we're going to decline. And that's not true. It's just not true. The evidence shows that we were designed to spend the first 40 years of our lives, and it's actually, the average woman lives to be 81 and has gone through menopause by 51. So we were designed to spend the first part of our life around reproduction, having children, raising our children. Our energies went to building strong families and our children. But physically, and we were designed for the next half of our life to be engaged, to be focused on the work that we love to do. You could say what our purpose is. That's, and so, but we don't get told that. And we don't, when we're going through changes and we're having these symptoms, they are symptoms, but they're symptoms because our bodies are changing to the next phase. It's almost like a caterpillar, right? A caterpillar's got this stage of life, and then they go through a change. I mean, I don't know what it's like to go through the chrysalis, but they come out and there's this beautiful butterfly because they're now stepping into this whole other part of why they came to be incarnated in this lifetime. So, and it's not, this is not just like woo-woo, it's the way we were designed. So when we're having those night sweats or those hormonal changes, they are deliberate. And so what what could happen if, as mom's going through these feelings or emotions, the family and mom understands what's happening and braces, oh my gosh, I am getting to move into the glory that I was designed to be here for. And if our family and our friends and our children understood this about us, it wouldn't be this like kind of devastating news like, oh, my life is, I'm on the downslide, because we aren't. We really aren't. So the average woman lives to be 81, and so if we go through menopause by 51, that's 40% of our life that we are here to live our glorious self. So there is a chart that was inspired to longevity curve that was inspired by Dr. Peter Attia. And I don't know if have any of you ever seen this before on longevity? So the idea is, this is our health and this is our life. And the traditional trajectory is we're just going to decline until we transition. But Peter Attia's research, you might check him out if you're interested in life science and longevity, is that if we're mindful and intentional about how we grow older, we can literally head out to the corner and then transition. So it can die in your sleep. So, and there's a lot of research around this that shows that's what's possible if we, again, are intentional about how we grow older. So, the other part of the science is that our 80% of how we age is determined by our choices, not by our genetics. And by being just in here just this morning, I hear so much conversation around we get to choose and being our best selves and all of that. So sure, some things are going to shift physically, but then it's how we respond to those that determines the joy in our life, the wonder in our life. And, I don't know about you, but how many of you, if you were given the choice, would want to be young again? Yeah? So we have a few hands. Okay, young again. I've found that the wisdom that has come to me and just the understanding is I wouldn't go back a day, except when I look in the mirror. Then it's like, oops. Because I remember my grandma when she was like 70 saying, I still feel 18, right? That joy is there. So the message really is that be intentional about how you grow older. Like one of the things I feel like I'm pretty mobile until I'm around my grandkids, right? And they're getting up and they're bouncing up and off the floor. But then and I'm like, oh, give me a minute. But what I realized is that, my core is not that strong and there's things that I can do. So I started taking Pilates. And there's lots of things that we can do deliberately and work into just the way that we live. Your meditations are a big deal. The thoughts we choose and the foods we eat. And I'm not saying don't give up the treats that you love, but mitigate them. Throw some good fat in there. And at Good Fat Life, we like to say, fill your day full of wonder so that you're layering all day long. You're making choices that make that curve come true. So maybe it's a little thing like, I set a timer because I can sit and work on my computer for hours. So I set a timer so that every hour for 5 minutes, I'll get up and do some squats or, get the barbells out or go pull some weeds. Oh my gosh. So those are all, there's so many things that we can do all day long in all the areas of our life to live that curve. So I would, and there was a Another thing that has popped up so much for me in the research is there's this idea that one size fits all, that if you eat this certain way, you will achieve all these things. But it's just not true. Our bodies are all designed so different that it's up to us to try things and figure out what works for our body, and then to be intentional around that. People will, society will try and say, here, eat this or do that. It worked for me. Well, great, it worked for them, but it may not work for you. So just be mindful that, and be curious. That curiosity is the biggest, I would say one of the biggest things for energy, is just be curious. It's like, oh, okay, let's try this. So there's a quick story that I want to tell you that I am part of my work with Gateway is we have this cohort of graduate students that are all together, and we get together once a year. And one of my colleagues is, he's about 45 now, and when he was 15, he was hit. He was running down the field with a football, got tackled, and became a quadriplegic. And so as a 15-year-old, he was told, your life is pretty much, this is it. This is all you have. And he realized at that time that he could use his mind, which again, 80% of this is our mind, right? He could use his mind and say, I want more for myself. Well, it took him 18 years, but he literally, as he said, he goes, I didn't vision walking, I felt walking. And so we have this thing like, if you visualize that you want to live your life like that, visualize it, that's amazing. But sometimes visualizing can feel like work. But when you can feel it, he said, I felt myself walking. I just could feel it. And so it gave me the desire, the energy, the will to step into that so that I could walk. And he's walking, he walks with the crutches. I mean, he still has lots of challenges, but he's become financially independent through his consulting and the work that he does. But I just loved that when we surround ourselves with people that give us new ideas or new ways of thinking, it builds so that we can get to the end of that. So I will ask you to think about that. Think about those things and how you build your life. We had some wonderful meditations with Kristen this morning about having that energy so that it's not just when you're meditating that you have it. How do we keep that no matter what happens, right? No matter what you hear on the news, you can go, so there's a couple things too. In our education system, our educators don't know, our medical community, they don't understand either how we are wired. I don't know how many of you have gone to the doctors and said, this is how I'm feeling, but are told that's just the way it is. It's just, it's just part of being older. And I would challenge you to say, no. There's adjusting through resignation, and then there's adjusting through embracing all that now is possible. So as I've been doing my work on my musical, it's hysterical. I mean, there's sometimes I'm laughing so hard at the way our hormones are changing, right? When you make them characters and get curious about how they're changing, it's really pretty funny. And we can have so much fun with it. So I would ask you, for your call to action is the first thing is get curious about your aging process rather than being fearful. Ask that question, how do I want to grow older? And choose one practice today, just one, make it, and I like to say, it's not about balancing our lives, it's about integrating our lives. So this just becomes who we are. Think about what you want to be doing when you're 90. Right? What do you want to look like when you're 90? what do you want to feel into? And then do it now so you can do it when you're 90, right? We were just in Paris a couple of weeks ago. It was my husband's 79th birthday. And he and his best friend, they've been best friends for 65 years, have said, we better be doing some of these things that we always wanted to do because we're pushing to 80, which is really hard for me to even conceptualize that. But we walked over 60 miles in 5 days. We did every single thing that we wanted to do. And at the end of the trip, we were marveling that we did that because we've been methodical about doing those things so we can do those things, right? And I would just ask you to engage intergenerationally too about aging and about as our bodies change, so that our children understand how to do things and it just becomes a way of their life, so they don't have to get to a point where they're like, oh gosh, I mean, I'm sure you all have people in your life that are needing extra care now because they can't take care of themselves. And that happens. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but if 80% of it could maybe have been mitigated, it's just something that I am asking you to think about. So my central question to all of you is, what shape do you want your longevity curve to take? And remember that you get to choose. So thank you.